Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a stack of documents that at first glance looks like, standard genealogy.
Right, census records, birth certificates, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Dates scribbled in family Bibles. But when you actually start plotting these points on a map, it stops looking like a family tree and starts reading, more like an epic adventure novel.
It really does. We are looking at a story that spans the entire 19th century. It covers almost the entire breadth of the North American continent.
And it involves everything from the Gold Rush to the Oregon Trail.
It's the kind of story that, it defines a nation, but we're seeing it through the lens of one specific family.
That's the key. We're talking about manifest destiny, but not the textbook version, not that painting of the lady floating in the air.
No.
We are talking about the gritty, the muddy, the exhausting reality of the people who actually laced up their boots and walked west. And for our listeners today, and specifically for the Burnett siblings, this isn't just history. These are your people.
Specifically, we are unpacking the lives of your third great-grandparents, Robert Moses Garrett and Rachel Jane Moore.
And these are two names that, by the end of this, are going to feel like characters from a movie.
Yeah.
We've got a roadmap today that is going to take us from the American South in the very early 1800s,
Right.
then up through the frontier of Illinois, down to the Ozarks of Arkansas, and eventually, and this is a twist I did not see coming, all the way to the Pacific Northwest.
And we can't forget the tragic detour in the middle of all that.
Oh, right.
There's a gold rush story involving their daughter that is, well, it's just heartbreaking. It really highlights the cost of all this expansion. It wasn't just about gaining land.
It was often about losing the people you loved.
Exactly.
So let's unpack this. We have to start at the beginning. Who were Robert and Rachel before they became these pioneers?
Okay, let's look at the origin documents. We are starting in the deep southeast. Robert Moses Garrett, we'll just call him Robert, was born on April 1st, 1803 in Georgia.
1803. That is the same year as the Louisiana Purchase. The U.S. barely existed past the Mississippi River.
Exactly. He's born right at the moment the country decides to get big. And his future wife, Rachel Jane Moore, she was born a few years later, February 22nd, 1808, in South Carolina.
Okay, so they're born in the South, Georgia and South Carolina. I'm assuming they met at some church social in Savannah or something like that.
You would think so, but no. And this is our first big clue that this family had, like itchy feet, long before the Oregon Trail even became a thing.
Yeah.
They didn't marry in Georgia or South Carolina. The records show they married in 1826 in Illinois.
Illinois in 1826. That seems incredibly far for that time period.
It was. You have to understand, in the 1820s, Illinois was the frontier. It was the old Northwest. Chicago was basically a swampy trading post.
Wow.
To get from the deep South to Illinois before the age of widespread railroads, that implies a massive journey. It suggests that their parents were already on the move. These were families that just didn't stay put.
They were chasing the horizon before they even met. So, 1826, they get married in the Midwest. They start building a life. And when we say building a family, we mean a big family.
Absolutely. The records indicate they were parents to at least 6 sons and 3 daughters. 9 children.
9 kids. Today, that sounds like a reality TV show. Back then.
Back then, it was an economic necessity. We have to connect this to the agrarian economy of the early 19th century. If you're farming on the frontier, you don't hire employees.
You raise them.
You raise them. Every child was another pair of hands to clear fields, tend livestock, and just, ensure survival. It was a unit of production as much as a family unit.
So they're in Illinois raising this large workforce. But that itch to move, it strikes again. By 1840, the census places them in Brush Creek Township, Washington County, Arkansas.
And this is a really crucial stopover. We see this pattern a lot in genealogy during this period. Arkansas, and especially the Ozarks, it often served as a kind of staging ground.
A staging ground.
Yeah, families would move from the Midwest or the South. They'd settle in Arkansas for a decade or so, gather resources, let the kids grow up, and then they'd look further west.
It's like a layover, but one that lasts 20 years.
Precisely. And for the Garretts, Arkansas is where the family starts to branch out. Their children are growing up, getting married, starting their own lives. And this is where the story splits. Because while Robert and Rachel eventually keep going, not everyone comes with them.
And this brings us to the part of the research that really it just stopped me in my tracks. We need to talk about their daughter, Orpha.
Orpha Dorinda Garrett. She was born back in Illinois in 1829.
So she's a young woman in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And on February 22nd, 1848, which coincidentally was her own mother's birthday, She gets married to a man named Burnett M. Easley.
The Easleys were neighbors, another prominent family in that area. It was a classic frontier match. You marry your neighbor because that's who's there.
Right.
They have a son later that year, Francis Marion Easley.
So everything seems to be going according to the standard script. You get married, you have a kid, you farm, but then 1849 happens, and the whole world just changes. Gold fever.
It's so hard for us to overstate the psychological impact of the California gold rush. It wasn't just people looking to get rich, it was a mania, a fever. Suddenly, farming in Arkansas felt very slow, very hard.
Compared to the promise of just picking up nuggets off the ground in California.
Exactly. So Burnett Easley, Orpha's husband, he catches the bug.
He does.
In the spring of 1850, Burnett joins the Great Rush. He leaves with his brothers, William and Francis.
And I want to pause here for a second and just think about Orpha. She's 20 years old. She has a toddler, Francis Marion. And as we find out later, she is pregnant with their second child.
And your husband says, I'm going to walk to California. I'll be back rich. It's just unimaginable today.
The journey is brutal. We know that. But for Burnett, it was fatal.
Yes. The sources are very specific here, and the details they're haunting. Burnett Easley died en route on July 16, 1850. He was in the Utah Territory.
And the cause of death.
Family tradition says he died from drinking alkali water.
Alkali water. Can you explain what that actually does to a person? I feel like I've heard that term in old Westerns, but what is the biology there?
Oh, it's horrifying. It's essentially water with a very high pH, just loaded with salts like sodium carbonate. In the desert heat, you're incredibly thirsty. You find a water source, but it's toxic.
So you drink it to quench your thirst.
And it does the opposite. It causes severe dehydration, gastrointestinal distress. I mean, it basically acts as a violent purgative. It sucks the remaining moisture right out of your body. It is a painful, awful way to go.
And the burial. This is the image that I cannot get out of my head. The sources say his brothers buried him near a Salt Flats camp, but it's how they buried him.
They built a campfire over the grave.
Over the grave.
It was a common, if grim, practice on the trail. You have to remember the context. They were terrified of the grave being disturbed, particularly by Native Americans or, wild animals like wolves.
So the fire was a disguise.
By building a fire over the fresh earth, they scorched the ground to hide the scent and disguise the fact that anyone was buried there. They literally erased his resting place to protect it.
That is chilling. Just a fire in the middle of the Utah desert, covering up a father who would never come home.
And this raises a really important point about communication. Burnett dies in July 1850. His second son, Robert B. Easley, likely named after Orpha's father, was born in September of 1850.
So the baby is born 2 months after the father dies.
Correct. Burnett was already dead, buried under ash in Utah when his son was born in Arkansas. But here is the kicker. Orpha almost certainly didn't know yet.
She's waiting for a letter. She's waiting for news about gold. She's holding a newborn.
And eventually, months later, a letter probably arrives from the brothers. Or maybe they just come home empty-handed and have to tell her, face to face.
So now you have Orpha, a widow at 21, 2 babies, stuck in Arkansas. This could have been the end of the line for her branch of the family.
It could have been, but this is where that theme of resilience just keeps coming back. You don't survive the frontier by giving up.
She remarries, right?
She does. Less than a year later, in June 1851, she marries Josiah Hackney Blackburn.
Another neighbor.
Yep. The son of Sylvanus Blackburn, who founded the War Eagle Mill, a very stable, established local family. It was a pragmatic move, certainly. She needed protection and support for her sons.
But it seems it was a lasting one.
It was. They went on to have a massive family together, 10 more children.
10 children, plus the 2 Easley boys. That is a full house.
Absolutely. And for the Burnett siblings listening, this is a crucial genealogical link. Orpha's son from that first tragic marriage, Francis Marion Easley, the little boy Burnett left behind, he is the ancestor who connects to the Weddell family line you might be familiar with.
Right. The sources mentioned they settled near Weddell's store in Oklahoma later on.
Correct. So that tragic death in Utah, that campfire grave, if Burnett hadn't died or if he had come back and taken the family to California, the Oklahoma connection and the Burnett line as it exists today might never have happened.
That is the butterfly effect in action.
Right.
It's wild. But while Orpha is rebuilding her life in Arkansas with the Blackburns, we had to swing the spotlight back to our main subjects, Robert and Rachel.
Right.
Because they are getting those itchy feet again.
And they are. The Arkansas chapter closes for them.
Right.
By the 1860 census, Robert and Rachel have made the jump. They are in Benton, Oregon.
They actually did it. They crossed the plains. But wait, let's just do the math here. Robert was born in 1803. If they're in Oregon in 1860, they probably traveled in the late 1850s.
Right.
That puts Robert at around 55, 56, 57 years old, and Rachel in her early 50s.
Which, in the mid-19th century, was considered old.
Exactly.
Mm.
That is not young to be walking alongside an ox cart for 2,000 miles. Today, 57 is prime time. You're thinking about retirement portfolios. In 1850s frontier terms, your body is worn out from 50 years of hard labor.
And yet they did it. They packed up again. They traversed the mountains, the rivers, the very deserts where their son-in-law had died a decade earlier, and they made it to the Willamette Valley.
Do we know why? Why leave Arkansas when they had family there? Why leave Orpha and the grandkids?
The sources don't give us a diary entry that says, we left because of X, but we can infer. The Oregon Territory was heavily promoted as a paradise for farmers. The Donation Land Claim Act was a massive draw-free land if you could get there and work it.
So if Arkansas was getting crowded or the soil was depleting, Oregon was the new promise.
It was the next frontier.
So they settled in Oregon, first in Benton, then by 1870 they're in Jackson County, specifically the Ashland area.
A beautiful part of the country, and they plant deep roots there.
And they live a long, long time.
They really do. This is the other side of that survival coin. Robert dies in 1889 at the age of 86. Rachel follows him in 1890 at the age of 82.
They started in the time of Thomas Jefferson and died in the time of electric lights and telephones. That span of history is just incredible.
It is. They stayed together for over 60 years, from Georgia and South Carolina all the way to the Pacific Ocean. But, and this is the sober part of longevity, living that long meant they had to watch a lot of their family die.
Right. We talked about Orpha's husband, but Robert and Rachel lost their own children, too.
Yes. In Oregon, they buried their son Warren in 1871, their son Moses in 1873, and Johnson Field Garrett in 1887. They outlived at least 3 of their adult sons.
That seems to be the tax you pay for being a pioneer patriarch and matriarch. You survive the journey, but you have to bury the ones who don't survive the life.
It's a heavy burden. Both Robert and Rachel are buried in Hargadine Cemetery in Ashland, Oregon. It's their final resting place after a life of constant movement.
I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the separation. We have Robert and Rachel in Oregon. We have Orpha in the Easley-Blackburn line back in Arkansas.
Right.
When Robert and Rachel left Arkansas, they knew, didn't they?
They had to have known. When you said goodbye to your daughter in the 1850s to go to Oregon, you are effectively saying goodbye forever.
For good.
There were no commercial flights, no Zoom calls. Even the mail took months and was, completely unreliable.
It's heartbreaking to think about. Orpha stays behind.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because of her new husband. Maybe because she couldn't face the trail that killed her first husband.
Yeah.
And her parents just go.
It speaks to a level of emotional fortitude that is hard for us to grasp. They prioritize the future, the land, the opportunity in Oregon over the immediate comfort of being near family. It's a very harsh, pragmatic way of looking at the world.
It really puts our modern communication struggles into perspective. Oh, they didn't text me back in an hour. Try waiting 6 months to find out if your parents made it across the Rockies alive.
Exactly.
So we have the Garretts establishing this hub in Oregon, and we have the Blackburn-Easley line holding down the fort in Arkansas, and eventually moving into Oklahoma near that Weddell store we mentioned.
2 different hubs of the same family, separated by half a continent.
But connected by that shared history of movement. And connected, ultimately, by the Burnett siblings today.
That's right.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought about that communication gap and just the sheer unknown they faced. I want you to imagine the moment Orpha finally got word about Burnett.
Right.
He dies in July. She's pregnant. She has the baby in September. Maybe the news comes in. October. November.
Likely right before winter sets in.
So she's holding a newborn baby he never saw. She's mourning. And then, a few years later, her parents say, "We're going to Oregon."
The very direction her first husband went and died.
Yes. That is a profound connection.
Did that-
Did that weigh on them? Did Orpha say, "Don't go"? Or did she say, "Finish the journey"? He couldn't. We'll never know what was said around that dinner table in Arkansas.
But the fact that they went anyway speaks volumes about their drive.
It does.
It suggests that the hope of what's next was always stronger than the fear of what happened. They didn't let the tragedy of the past dictate the geography of their future.
The hope of what's next is stronger than the fear of what happened.
I like that. I think that's a perfect summary of the Garrett and Easley legacy.
I agree. It's about looking forward, Always forward.
So, to the Burnett siblings, when you look at your family tree, don't just see names and dates. See the mileage. See the alkali water. See that campfire in Utah and the gravestones in Ashland.
You come from people who could endure almost anything.
And next time you're drinking a glass of water,
Maybe be thankful it's not alkali.
and be thankful you didn't have to walk 2,000 miles to get it.
That is our deep dive for today. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.